Hey, young people. Well, ABC did a pretty good timeline here, and this is from June 3rd. I'm getting it on June 7th, so by the time I get it posted, it may be later, but they did a pretty good timeline. Let's take a look at this, and then I'll add in some things if I watched it once a few days ago, but I'm still I'll figure it out as I watch it.
About the shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. The incident on May 24th left 21 dead and 17 wounded.
So 21 dead, 17 wounded. That's the first time I've heard the 17 wounded number.
In the days following, authorities gave differing accounts of what happened, raising questions about how law enforcement responded. The rampage continued for 77 minutes before officers killed the shooter. Using a timeline for...
So they're saying 77 minutes. I'm hearing now it's even longer than that. 60 minutes is an hour, and it's even longer than that.
From Texas Department of Public Safety Director Stephen McCraw, mapping and additional footage from the scene. Here's what we know so far. In some cases, timing is approximate.
So I haven't seen this picture yet of different things where they're piling out this window because I saw different ones. But I'm trying to look for indiscrepancies here. Long guns. Remember, there were 19 cops inside, and we see all these guys outside still. So I'm saying well over 100 cops on scene.
Shortly after 11 a.m. on May 24th, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos allegedly shot his 66-year-old grandmother in the face at their home. At 11:28, the gunman crashed into a ravine near Robb Elementary. A teacher outside witnessed the crash and went inside to get her phone. Ramos then allegedly exited the car and opened fire on two people outside the funeral home across the street. Neither was injured, according to McCraw. At 11:30, the teacher went back outside to call 911 and report the crash. But while speaking...
So a teacher went outside to report the crash. I'd like to know what this teacher's interview was. Did she hear the gunshots that he was shooting at the other place? How did she report the crash, and what was she doing outside in order to see the crash? She had the door propped open and she was out there smoking, would be my guess.
To the dispatcher, she saw a man approaching the school with a gun. She ran inside and closed the door behind her, thinking it would lock automatically, the teacher's lawyer told ABC News.
So she ran inside a door that she thought would lock automatically. Well, how did she get in the door that locks automatically? She use a key? Or did she prop it open with a rock and didn't move the rock?
That door is supposed to always be locked. She runs into a classroom right to her right, and that's when she starts to hear.
So, right there, government failure, that door is supposed to be always locked. Why did she go out it? Why wasn't there alarmed? Was it disabled? Is this a standard practice? Remember, this school was locked down 48 or 52 times since the beginning of the year. So in 4 or 5 months, it was locked down over almost 50 times or more. That's a lot of lockdowns. People get laxed. Government officials always get laxed.
Pop, 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 pop. Just really fast.
A minute later, Ramos allegedly jumped over a fence and moved towards the school while firing at the building. Meanwhile, a Uvalde school district officer who heard the call arrived at the school.
That officer drove immediately to the area, sped to what he thought was the man with a gun, to the back of the school, what turned out to be a teacher.
So this is a school resource officer that doesn't know what teachers look like. So he sees a person, and it's a school resource teacher. And the teacher that was outside that he contacted, we have to believe, didn't say, the shots came from over there and point him. But we don't know that. If I was conducting investigation and conducting interviews, we would know that.
And not the suspect. In doing so, he drove right by the suspect, who was hunkered down behind a vehicle where he began shooting at the school.
Soon after, Ramos entered...
So he drove by him, and then he started shooting at the school. Again, a reasonable person would say, you know where the shooter is if he's shooting at the school and you just drove by him, right? Why didn't you engage him? Why didn't you return fire? Why didn't you follow him?
The school through the same door on the building's northwest side, which was closed but unlocked, according to Texas DPS, who confirmed the account from the teacher's attorney. From there, he walked 20 to 30 feet through the school, turned right down a hallway, and entered either classroom 111 or 112.
So why didn't he enter the classrooms at the bottom here? Let's go back here. Why didn't he enter any of these rooms? Maybe their doors were locked. And these are the ones where he found the doors unlocked. Maybe. Government failure.
Feet through the school, turned right down a hallway, and entered either classroom 111 or 112.
Okay, what they're saying now is he entered 112. Earlier they were saying 111. Now they're saying he entered 112 because we have an interview from the teacher of 111 that says he shot in here and then came in there and shot him. So, again, bad information still coming out.
Which are connected. About a minute before the gunman entered the building, an employee triggered an internal alert system. A spokesperson for Raptor Technologies, the company that makes the app, told ABC News.
At 11:33, the suspect begins shooting into room 111 or 112. It's not possible to determine from the video angle that we have at this point in time.
Since we have the school teacher saying he went in 112 and then walked through to my classroom in 111, we gotta believe that's an eyewitness account on what he did.
He shot more than 100 rounds based on the audio evidence.
Okay, based on audio evidence, more than 100 rounds? I don't know about that. I heard today when they were testifying on the Congress, some freaking Hollywood dude said they had to identify a kid by her shoes because there was nothing left of her. Look, people, an AR or a 9mm, whatever pistol, they're not telling us what pistol he had, whether he fired it or what the kids were shot or how many times the kid was shot. In order to make a kid unrecognizable with an AR, and you have to use their shoes to identify them, you would have to shoot that person probably 100 times. It's just ridiculous what they're saying.
At that time.
2 minutes later, 3 Uvalde officers entered the school, soon followed by 3 more and a deputy county sheriff.
So 3 minutes after he enters, you have 3 cops on him that could have attacked and stopped him or got shot trying. And you have 3 more follow him in. So you had over 6 officers there within 3 minutes. I keep hearing all this. It's the rifle. We need to do this. We need more training. It's not enough training. I hear all the... You had 6 officers there within 3 minutes. And they didn't go in the room until they had 77 minutes later. Absolute government failure and coward cops.
Sheriff, while other officers surrounded the building, according to Macron.
So they had a lot of officers. They had 6 inside, or 7, and a bunch surrounding the building, which is against shooter protocol. As long as any cop heard a shot, he should have been charging toward the shooter. Until I get a radio call saying the shooter is down, I'm going to shots fired, period. That's the training. That's what they should have done. They didn't. They failed. They're cowards. They're incompetent. And now they're lying.
The 3 initial police officers that arrived went directly to the door, and 2 received grazing wounds at that time from the suspect.
And people began to gather.
Notice he doesn't say they returned fire. Notice he doesn't say they fired 8 times at the guy or 6 times or all officers. They just ran. Cowards.
Outside the school. At 11:58, some students were seen exiting through the windows.
Somebody jump out the window.
Oh, the kids. They're getting the kids out.
They're not getting the kids out. The kids are getting out and they're helping them get out the window. Let's get that right. The cops didn't do anything right in this.
I'm ready. I have to.
At 12:03, more officers entered the school and met in the hallway.
19. People, you don't realize how many people are 19 officers. In the military, we have a squad of 3 fire teams. A fire team is 4 people. So a squad is either 12 to 13 people with a squad leader on the team. That is a formidable force for a good fighting. I mean, you can do a lot of damage with 3 4-man fire teams. That's 12 people. These people had over a squad of cops with guns, bulletproof vests, shields, and long guns. And they waited for freaking backup. Are you kidding me?
Bringing the total number of law enforcement in the building up to 19. While
Up to. They probably had more. Remember, if government says something's going to cost $1,000, it means it's going to cost $50,000. If they say they had 19 officers, they probably had 25 or 30 officers.
this happened, someone made an 83-second 911 call from inside room 112. The same person called back less than 10 minutes later, reporting that multiple...
Can you imagine being a kid in there? I just called 911, I hear the police outside, and now 10 minutes later, I've got to call back again. Meanwhile, I have a maniac running around shooting people with a gun, and I'm helpless. And the cops are out there saying, officer safety, we don't want to go in. It might be a hostage. We'll just wait outside. We don't know what to do. We're under orders. Absolutely outrageous, people.
Multiple people were dead, McCraw said.
So when this goes over radio, they're trying to play like, oh, we didn't get that. We didn't have their radio. Look, when cops are on scene, anybody that gets update information, they share it with other cops, especially if you have multiple agencies, because you know sometimes you're not on the same radio. Sometimes you can switch to the same radio, but sometimes you can't. And, you know, when you get too large of an agency, you can't have everybody on one radio. In Sacramento, we had Sacramento PD, Sacramento Sheriff, Sacramento CHP, Sacramento freaking, you name it, probation, Sacramento parole. Everybody had their own channel, because if you got everybody on one channel, nobody could ever talk. So it's not unusual or lack of funding or a big error that they couldn't talk to each other. It's a simple fact. They suck. They were scared. They weren't communicating. And I still think they did know about the calls. They're just saying they didn't know so they don't look any worse.
Room 12, are we able to... Is there anybody inside of the building at this?
So we're not hearing who answered that radio call, who was the radio call directed to, what was the response, and what the hell was being done in that hallway for all this time. We're not getting that, people. And there's a reason for that.
Tyler is advising he is in the room full of victims at this moment.
Why wouldn't he be standing? You guys haven't shot at him yet. Well, so I think this cop is asking, did he shoot himself? So he wants dispatcher with 19 officers in a hallway to call back a scared child laying in there in fear of her life and ask her if the shooter is still standing. What a freaking coward.
At 12:16, the same caller in room 112 called back again to report that some students were still alive, according to McCraw.
So obviously, 911 didn't call back. The kid called back and said, we still have people alive in here. Did that change their response? No, it didn't.
At that time, U.S. Border Patrol Tactical Unit was on the scene with shields and other equipment.
At 12:21, the suspect fired again, was believed to be at the door. Law enforcement moved down the hallway.
The 911 caller in room 112 asked for police to be sent in, making the same request a few minutes later, according to McCraw. At 12:50 p.m., 80 minutes after the teacher's first 911 call, tactical officers entered the room using keys from a janitor.
80 minutes after the first call. Wow.
They shot and killed the gunman in room 111, sources told ABC News.
Which backs up the teacher's story that he said the cops came in and all he heard was gunshots and they shot him. And he said he was in 111 and the shooter entered in 112 and then walked over to 111.
The incident was the worst mass shooting at an American public school in nearly a decade.
Well, the only reason it was worse is because you had over 20 or 30 cops that were cowards and refused to go in, and nobody wanted to go in. And not only did they not want to go in, they handcuffed parents, held parents down on the ground, tased parents, and wouldn't let them go in to save their children. Colossal failure of government, and the incompetency is just glowing. And there's still people wanting to blame the gun and tell me if you take guns from good people, this will somehow prevent this. This stupid teacher is calling for more laws. This guy broke so many damn laws, I can't even count the number of laws he broke. He shot his mom. He got a gun. He drove without a license. He crashed the car. He left the scene of an accident. He freaking entered a school zone. He shot at an occupied building, 2 buildings, a funeral home and a school. He shot multiple times at people, endangering multiple lives. He entered a school, shot people in the face, killed helpless, unarmed people. How many laws did this guy break? And this stupid ass teacher that's giving out this interview now is saying, we need more laws. Perfect. That proves you're an idiot, which is why you're teaching public schools, which is why all you idiots always vote the left-wing bullshit.
And has left many wondering whether officers acted appropriately. In March of this year, local law enforcement in Uvalde received training in ways to respond to a situation.
I went over this. I did a complete video on this thing. I even have this complete document so you can download it and read it on my other video. Flat out, stop the killing, period. No ifs, ands, buts. They got training twice in the last 2 years, and once like a couple of months before this incident. And guess what? They ignored their training. They failed to follow their training. And the consequences for that? Nothing. Nada.
Like this. Local law enforcement has changed its account of the events multiple times since the incident.
There was a brave Consolidated Independent School District resource officer that approached him, engaged him.
This was the first story we got. Brave law enforcement engaged and shot at him. Oh, well, maybe didn't engage it. Now what they're saying, he verbally engaged him. It was a misspoken word. He did engage him, but it was just verbally. We just added the part that he shot at him and got in a shootout and the brave part. What a freaking bunch of liars.
It was reported that a school district police officer confronted the suspect that was making entry. Not accurate. He walked in unobstructed initially.
3 days after the shooting, McCraw said that officers waited to enter the room because they believed that the active shooter situation had ended.
Look at all these cops. Remember, there were freaking federal agencies there from the Border Patrol, State Police, Sheriff's Department, Uvalde Police, Uvalde School District Police, the FBI, the ATF. I mean, you name it, they were there. DEA was there. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of cops. And it still took them almost 80 minutes to go in and kind of mop up and draw chalk lines. And now they're claiming, oh, it's the gun's fault. It's not our incompetent fault. It's not the school for not locking the doors. It's not the cops for not doing their job and follow their training. No, no, no. It's the gun's fault that we need to get rid of the gun and the big magazine. Absolutely outrageous.
Ended.
Obviously, based upon the information we have, there were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation. And for the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was a
Well, we knew it wasn't the right decision before hindsight. You go in and you get the shooter. It doesn't go to a hostage situation. See, that's one of the big thing where people are getting confused about this and misinformation, and they're believing it. The difference between a hostage taker and an active shooter, a hostage taker does something for political gain, for money, for escape. He has a goal to get something when he takes hostages. In an active shooter case, a coward goes to a school with unarmed because he knows it's a gun-free zone and he's going to be safe and he's going to get to kill a lot of people and nobody's going to be able to shoot him till he kills a lot of people. So he goes to the school with the intent to kill. Those people do not stop killing until they are killed or dead, period. And everyone is taught and trained that. So this crap about what we thought it was a hostage taker doesn't go to school and start shooting at it outside. A hostage taker doesn't start shooting people for no reason before he takes hostage. A hostage taker wants live hostages so he can negotiate for something that he wants. Active shooters only want to kill. That's why they pick the gun-free zone schools to do it. They have a lot of victims in a very small area, caged in like freaking caged rats in a room, and they get to shoot them at will. And then the cops get to stand outside and claim we were confused. We didn't have communication. It wasn't our fault. It was a radio. We don't know why the door didn't lock. We didn't know who was doing what. Well, the FBI, well, we didn't know who to talk to. There was federal aid. It was very confusing. Out freaking rageous. All right, so this is the current timeline. I don't know what else they say in this video.
Wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
Law enforcement is investigating why the school door didn't lock.
Law enforcement always investigates, and their conclusion is always the same. They found that law enforcement didn't do anything wrong, and that they need more money and more people and more resources to fix what they screwed up. Same result, same investigation.
The Justice Department is currently reviewing law enforcement's response.
Reviewing. Nobody's getting criminal charges. Here, I'm going to add in this part on the criminal part here. Nobody's getting charged for this, and Texas Penal Code 22401 or 22.041, abandoning or endanger a child. In this section, abandon means leave a child in a place without providing reasonable and necessary care for the child. They left those kids in there with a shooter for over an hour. That is abandonment at the very least, under circumstances under which no reasonable adult would leave a child of that age and that ability. What adult would leave a child in a room with an active shooter and not go in and say, oh, we thought it was a hostage. Oh, yeah, that's it. It's freaking crazy. Person commits this if he intentionally, knowingly, reckless, with criminal negligence. All of that was with this. They intentionally didn't go in because they had a choice. They knowingly waited because they said they didn't know about the phone call and they thought they were dead and they thought it was a hostage. It's reckless not to go in on active shooters when he's with kids. It's freaking criminally negligent. How the hell is nobody getting charged with this? Place a kid in imminent danger of death, bodily injury, physical or mental impairment. You don't think these kids are mentally scarred if they lived? And you don't think they were facing death? And nobody went in. And they were in the custody of the school. If you go down here, it's a state felony to commit this act. If you go down to the, did I get to the family code? Yeah. In the family code, it says about mandatory reporters. You have to report, leaving a child in a situation where it would expose them to substantial risk without arranging necessary for care. I mean, this is literally the definition of abandoning or endangering a child, and no one's getting charged. It's just, and the DA can charge this. Person reasonable child care and custody and welfare means a person responsible for the child's care and custody. School teachers, parent, guardian, foster parent, member of the family, person who the child's parent is, volunteer at a child's school, school personnel. So the school left them in there and the cops left them in there. Rick, it wasn't their fault. They didn't have it ready. It's just absolutely outrageous. I don't know how else to say it. It's criminal and it's bullshit that the government is being able to give a bunch of ignorant, pesky citizens some lousy ass excuses, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. Everybody did what they were supposed to, but it was the mean AR's fault. And let's sue the manufacturer, and let's take ARs away from good people, and let's take big magazines away from good people, because that would have kept this person safe. Absolute ridiculous. All right, we'll end that there.